With me now is CTV News political analyst and former Deputy Chief of Staff to former Finance Minister Bill Morneau, Sharan Kaur. Sharan, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You know what? Interesting stuff as we look at this back and forth and maybe the contrast of how Mark Carney approached this speech at the World Economic Forum yesterday and Donald Trump's comments today. I mean, in particular, your reaction to Donald Trump and singling out Mark Carney, which the Prime Minister did not do specifically yesterday. But what do you think?
Well, if you were to compare the two speeches next to each other, I don't even think there's a day and night difference in terms of what the message was. Prime Minister Carney's speech, which was probably one of the most consequential speeches we'll hear of our time, compared to President Donald Trump, who kind of just went off on a bit of a downplayed rant, is what it sounded like, at one point even referring to it as Iceland. I think he approached it in a way where he watched the speech that Carney gave and is not happy about it, because Davos, the World Economic Forum, is a stage of the world's elites, CEOs, leaders, and Prime Minister Carney got a resounding thumbs up to his speech. So you could tell there's a level of, I don't know if it's embarrassment or frustration or annoyance, but you can tell in his tone and tenor that he's not pleased, but at the same time had to be semi-measured with what he said. So he could have gone a whole lot harder, but he was pretty incoherent for a good part of his speech. So it's hard to tell what exactly is going on.
Yeah, and I was reading some of your comments yesterday, too, about the Prime Minister's speech, too, and at least at this point. But it's interesting now as you watch, and I think in particular the platform and where Mark Carney gave this speech yesterday and how he delivered that speech is clearly, we haven't necessarily seen that from any leader, necessarily this country or around the globe. And now that's how that's going to affect these shifting relations as we watch it happen with all the trade deals that Canada has signed as a result of this deteriorating relationship with the U.S.
Absolutely. I think if viewers haven't watched or read the speech, it's something that I highly recommend. It's not even about the politics of it. I think the tone, the tenor, the language, the approach the Prime Minister took, it commanded respect from world leaders across the globe. And I think it set aside the idea that the U.S. is what's going to control everyone. It reminded everyone that even middle power countries have a right to their own defense. And I think that his approach in this speech is something that is going to be studied for years to come, because it truly made Canada look like the adult at the table.
And you look at what's already happening too, Sharan, right? That the UK, or not the UK, the EU, excuse me, at least at this point, now as a result of this, just today, blocking its trade, you have the parliamentarians standing up and saying, no, we're not just going to ratify this as normal. Do you expect to see that continue possibly here in other places around the world or otherwise, as maybe a little bit of that infused standing up to a bully?
Yeah, and I think that we had this whole saying of elbows up during the campaign, where it was like, we're going to push back at a bully. But again, everyone has to be very careful with how they do that, because the U.S. is a superpower and can impact global economies far and wide. But what we saw come out of yesterday is that people are feeling like they can stand up to themselves. If collectively the world comes together to push back on Trump, there will be consequences to the U.S. And I think we're going to start to see more of that coming out of the EU and other parts of the world as well.
Certainly interesting. CTV News political analyst Sharan Kaur with us today. Sharan, thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.